to the 99th floor with Piu, And what about the 67th floor? Elka mentioned that the red locusts are behaving strangely, Nia. Both of them climbed onto Elko's palm, who gently lifted them onto the head. Wherever they needed to go, the silver wolf would take them. No need to split up, Iona said, explaining that the red locust's behavior was indeed changing. The cat asked, "Is that good news? Can you explain why?" The Grand Mage narrated how locusts evolved based on the size of their population. Not only red, locusts also come in yellow, green, blue, and even purple. When their numbers decrease, their color fades, and their size and strength diminish, leading to their regression. She continued while Elko and Hegel moved gently through the merchant village, drawing the gazes of all the creatures on both sides of the road at the sight of the enormous wolves. "Has anyone noticed a capybara sleeping on a bench?" Iona carried on. "Locusts' trait is their infinite gluttony. They can't stay in one place and must constantly move to find food. As terrifying as they are, this also makes the solution to them quite clear. Without new food sources, they'll succumb to hunger and start eating one another, eventually leading to their extinction." "Does this mean the behavior change you mentioned signals their regression?" Elko asked, receiving a knowing smile from Iona. "Exactly. It's a sign they're degenerating. So the red locust menace is as good as over, and the Archmage won't need to intervene herself." Meanwhile, on the 67th floor, the sky was overcast as lizard warriors checked their blade green onion after a recent locust attack. Red locust carcasses were strewn everywhere, so abundant that stepping on one was unavoidable. A yellow lizard warrior stomped on one and grumbled, "I'm sick and tired of these red locusts." Sure, they're a delicacy for their lizards, but eating the same thing all the time gets old, not to mention having to fend off their endless attacks. Suddenly, another lizard sprinted over, shouting, "General Tamuro!" It carried a locust carcass in its arms, its face full of urgency. "Sir, please take a look at this. There's a patch of blue on their heads." Following the warrior's pointed claw, Tamuro saw the bluish mark on the deceased locust's head. Eyes wide in surprise, he clenched his fist with excitement. "At last, their numbers have dwindled to about 5 billion, huh? Isn't it said they'll turn green when their population hits 3 billion? The warriors gathered around Tamuro, their spirits lifting as they finally saw hope after months of fighting. "The goal is within reach. If we can hold out just a little longer, we'll reclaim this land," they cheered. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice rang out. It was a wild boar dressed in fine attire, accompanied by its subordinates, having arrived unnoticed. The boar smiled cordially. "Warrior Tamuro, you've worked hard. This is Tarek, leader of the large wandering merchant guild, Chaw, operating under direct orders from Grid." Clearly someone of importance, Tarek's presence prompted Tamuro to hurry forward to greet him. "Mr. Tarek, what brings you to such a dangerous place?" Tamuro asked. With his hands clasped behind his back, Tarek replied, "Many lizardmen have been sacrificing themselves for the tower. I thought it only right to visit and express my gratitude. This is a small token of appreciation from my master, Lord Grid." Tarek revealed a cloth-wrapped box, opening it to reveal a bar of gleaming gold that shone even amidst the gray skies. Is this the tower's coin guarantee medal?" Tamuro asked, taking the object, but clearly puzzled. Why had Tarek brought such a thing? Tarek explained, "If you go to the Merchant Association's bank, you can exchange it for 10,000 tower coins anytime. It's essentially a high-value promissory note." Tamuro looked at Tarek in astonishment. "How could I accept such a significant gift?" With the same practiced smile, Tarek replied, "To Lord Grid, you're a hero who protects the tower from the red locusts. He'd like to actively support you as a sponsor. Of course, once this is all over, he also plans to assist with the reconstruction efforts on the 67th floor very generously." Did Lord Grid really say that? Seeing the joy in Tamuro's eyes, Tarek knew the lizard general had fallen into his trap. His smile remained polished, but his gaze carried the weight of calculation as he noticed Tamuro swiftly tucking the gold into his chest. Tamuro, eager to reciprocate, asked, "I would like to return the favor somehow. What can I do for Lord Grid?" Now to the heart of the matter. Having received the gift, the conversation naturally flowed. Tarek responded, "Lord Grid is a humble man. Would you be willing to spend some time having tea in our tent and talking with us? The others are welcome too." Tamuro readily agreed, allowing Tarek to lead him away like a newfound comrade, with 4 lizard warriors following close behind. As Tarek mentioned that a grand feast had been prepared for everyone to enjoy, the warriors exclaimed with delight, "I'm starving! This is exciting! Finally, something other than these red locusts. Unbeknownst to them, the two brown dogs who had been accompanying Tarek earlier did not follow the group. Instead, they quietly turned back, smirking as they ensured the field was deserted. They opened their backpacks, pouring out piles of fresh meat, fish, and an abundance of vibrant vegetables. Their merchant bags, equipped with expansive spatial dimensions, continued to spill out food, forming massive heaps at the bottom of a ravine. The two dogs, grinning wickedly from above, watched as the supplies amassed below. What were they planning? The passageway village was nestled beneath an ancient forest of towering trees, always fresh and cool. Sunlight filtered down through the big branches, lighting up the busy street where people were always bustling about. Instead of the usual monster merchants you'd expect to see, a green-skinned guy who clearly wanted to stay hidden suddenly showed up, catching the attention of two dog merchants. He pulled out a shiny, that unused brass tube that reflected the sunlight just a bit. Now, take a look at this. It's enchanted with preservation magic, so it can preserve food for a long time. What do you think? Are you interested? Scarum enthusiastically promoted the item, but to everyone else, it was just an ordinary tube. One of the two dogs spoke up skeptically. What's so great about this? Just as Scarum seemed like he might fail, a soft voice came from behind. A fluffy white cat named Meryl stepped forward, grabbing both dogs' arms at once. Brothers, if Meryl can't sell this, Dad Scarum will hit me. Can you please buy it for me? Meryl clung to the dogs sweetly, making them look confused. The pretty girl with clear blue eyes smiled sadly, looking like she was about to cry. Plus, she added, looking pitiful and wiping her face, making the dogs glare at Scarum. So this goblin is your dad? And he hits you? The dogs looked at Scarum with distrust, making him flustered. She's adopted. I don't hit her, just play around sometimes, he stammered. You know, just messing around. She's a jokester. Meryl's sparkling eyes made everyone feel sorry for her, and her voice sounded really down. Brothers, you're gonna buy it for Meryl, right? Honestly, nobody was into that silly item, but Meryl's cute and pitiful look was hard to ignore. The golden dog looked at the black dog, cheeks turning red, and they exchanged a glance before quickly dropping a handful of money into her palms. Meryl happily waved at the two dogs, thanking them a lot for not just buying one, but even 4 of the tubes with such a cheerful attitude. Her smile was totally worth it. As they walked away, Scarum loudly asked the cat, "What did you say about me being your dad?" Everyone misunderstood. Oh my, didn't it work out since you sold the item? Here, your share. Meryl immediately changed her expression when talking to the Green Goblin, clearly not knowing that he wasn't actually controlling her. But why is my share only 2 coins? Scarum frowned, realizing the payment was just that, and got annoyed, demanding more. Each tube costs 5 tower coins. Give me more. I was the one who sold it. You don't even know how to sell the items properly. You should be thankful I gave you some of it. Scarum snapped, handing him only 2 coins out of frustration. He mumbled something unhappy, but put the money in his pocket. Meryl threw all the money into her purse, reminding Scarum about his promise to let her take revenge. When will I be able to take revenge if you're just selling these trivial things? She said. He replied vaguely, just wait, the time will come. Suddenly, Scarum went silent when he saw a very familiar figure passing by, a huge silver wolf ridden by a cat. As soon as he recognized it, the Green Goblin and Marl quickly hid behind some crates, trying to stay out of sight from the orange cat. The cat didn't see any mess left behind because the two had run away so quickly, but it felt like something was there and stood there confused for a moment. Iona found it strange and asked what was up, but Theo didn't know either. He just thought he heard a familiar voice. Then the silver and black wolves casually walked away, not noticing that Marl and Scarum were hiding behind some wooden crates, breathing heavily from running so fast and scared they might get caught. Later, both peeked out and Scarum complained, "That cat surely isn't fit to become a noble." Meryl was just irritated that the hamster was sticking close to him, not expecting her ex to still be hanging out with that hamster. "So annoying," she muttered. When Meryl spoke, Scarum finally noticed the hamster. "Wait, isn't she Iona, the leader of the Magician Association?" Meryl realized only now that the hamster had such an important status. The goblin was pretty sure because he always hung around the merchant market and knew the news well. After all, she was the leader of one of the 3 associations maintaining the tower. Now, Marl was only focused on how to get revenge on someone with such a high status. The more she thought about it, the more annoyed and frustrated she got. Who are those small fries behind him? And there's Oren too. She was talking about the rabbit with a ribbon next to Oren, riding the black wolf. From earlier until now, that rabbit has been buried in a thick book, not paying any attention to the black cat, and Oren didn't dare to bother them either while they were reading. Skaram followed the direction Mara was pointing, suddenly frowning as if something was hard to say. Then he slumped down and sat behind the pile of wooden crates, rummaging through his pocket to answer the cat's question. "What are you looking at?" Skaram thought he recognized that rabbit. It seemed like he had seen it somewhere before, so he started searching through the papers in his pocket. When he found the piece of paper, a mischievous smile spread across his face. He was right. He knew his chance would come. In his hand was an old piece of paper, written in ancient script about the tower. It was a wanted list from Grid, top secret. The familiar red ribbon was the trademark of the Red Ribbon Kingdom's princess, and it was also Puyu's symbol from when she was young. It listed a wanted princess of the Red Ribbon Kingdom with a reward of 10,000 tower coins. On the way, Theo had heard Iona briefly talk about the Red Ribbon Rabbit and was very surprised to learn that Puyu was the last princess of the Red Ribbon Kingdom. "I heard the entire royal family was eaten by the locusts during their invasion, Nya," he said. "Why didn't you tell me she was still alive, Nya?" The cat turned his head to look at the two young ones on Hagel's head, whispering to Iona as if it was a very secret matter. "She weren't eaten, Theo," she sighed. What did she mean? The answer seemed to be somehow they're still alive as princesses, but the hamster frowned very seriously, saying the royal family was murdered. The cat almost jumped up when he heard that. To him, the royal family being killed was a severe matter, so shocked that his mouth hung open, unable to believe it. Not only Theo, even the silver wolf was stunned when Iona explained. A few decades ago, during the locust invasion on the 55th floor, the Mercenary Association and the Wandering Merchant Association, along with the big shots from the magic tower we're in, stayed in the Red Ribbon Kingdom to help the rabbits. Back then, just like now, during important meetings, Iona had to stand up to be tall enough to see the entire map. That day's meeting had many prominent figures. Almost all the heads of the tower's organizations were there. Lucius, the leader of the Mercenary Association at that time, suggested, "Tomorrow we'll focus all our forces on defending this area. We need to secure the fields." Suddenly, the person across the table spoke up. "Food is also an issue, but once the locusts start to multiply, things will get really messy. So according to you, the kingdom will be left empty while the locusts are attacking." Iona, who was much younger back then and serving as the vice leader of the Magician Association, slowly spoke up. "The queen is in the kingdom, so there won't be a problem." Pointing outside, the hamster said that a barrier was protecting this place. At this moment, the red locusts wouldn't be able to do anything to the moon's divine power, and of course, it was the Magician Association members who created that barrier. Everyone looked up at the clear blue sky with white lines intertwining, a sign that the barrier was still very strong. Its effectiveness was unquestionable. Suddenly, the leader turned back to look at Iona. "I heard that since the locusts appeared, you haven't been able to get any sleep." The goblin leader nodded in agreement. "You're truly amazing," she replied. "That's why we can rest comfortably here." Lucius agreed. "All right, let's end the meeting here and meet again tomorrow." Everyone excitedly agreed, because all the prominent figures of the tower were present, and handling the red locusts with them wouldn't be too difficult. But Iona couldn't have imagined that while everyone was trying to save the rabbit herd, there were people in distress looking to profit, and dark plots were being carried out quietly without anyone knowing. After disbanding the meeting, everyone went back to their rooms to sleep or rest. The corridor was silent, only sunlight streaming through the window. The Red Ribbon Kingdom had arranged a warm room for Iona, with a small wicker basket just the right size for the hamster. Iona was deeply asleep in her tiny bed, catching up on the sleep she missed while setting up the barrier, when suddenly she was jolted awake by some noise. It was the sound of many frantic footsteps all at once, and within a second, the hamster realized something was wrong. Quickly getting out of bed, she grabbed her cloak and put it on. When she reached the door, she saw a crowd of rabbits of various colors running out like they were flying. She immediately asked the nearest white rabbit, "What's happening?" "The barrier has collapsed, and the locusts." At that point, she knew the locusts had already invaded the kingdom without needing to ask further. Iona just wanted to know how the king and queen were doing now. The entire palace was bustling with footsteps. And now, alongside Iona, there were even heavier footsteps. Everyone hurriedly opened the grand palace doors. Accompanying her at that moment were a few rabbits, Lucius the leader of the Mercenary Association, and a few others who had been present at the meeting. The scene before everyone's eyes was incredibly grim. Light from the balcony outside shone onto the sight of a boar dressed in a cloak, holding a motionless white rabbit in its arms. Next to it lay another white rabbit amidst a pile of lifeless red locust corpses. Red curtains fluttered in, carrying the scent of fresh blood, making everyone jump in surprise. Grand Merchant Grid? Everyone gasped his name, but Grid remained silent, saying nothing. The surrounding red locust corpses quickly stirred fear in Iona's mind. Everyone fell silent as Grid placed the rabbit's body down, covered its face with 2 white cloths, and then began to speak. The king and queen were killed in the locust ambush. By the time we arrived, they were all ready, and they left this for me. He held out a rolled-up paper tied with a red bow, sealed with the kingdom logo. Grid solemnly presented it for everyone to see. At first, it was backlit, so no one recognized it, but once they did, everyone was utterly astonished. It was a land deed. As Lucius and the other leaders approached, although surprised, Iona knew they had been convinced. She gradually backed away from the door, and as she sprinted out, she could only hear Grid's voice saying, "As everyone can see." The hamster's face showed extreme hatred. She fled because she couldn't stand the boar. Grid's fake, nauseating expression as he cried, claiming they had left the little princess and the kingdom to him. Even though it's a huge burden, I, Grid, will fully take responsibility and protect the Red Ribbon Kingdom. A brave black rabbit loudly objected on the spot. Stop lying. There's no way the king and queen would hand over the kingdom to a wild boar merchant, someone who isn't even a rabbit. The black rabbit was incredibly courageous, but in her state, she could only utter one sentence before Grid's subordinate slammed her head onto the floor with a loud thud, being so rough and quick that even Lucius standing there couldn't intervene in time. The entire hall immediately fell silent at the brutal scene. How could a rabbit stand up against a wild boar? Grid, unfazed, raised his short, stubby pig claws and calmly asked, "Next? Anyone else want to say something?" Then Lucius and the other leaders broke into a sweat, mentioning that the remaining white rabbit had seen the companion's reflection, only to be met with stifled sobs. A fake smile spread across Grid's face, and behind him were 2 wild boar guards ready to strike, though no one dared to speak up. No one. Then, where's the princess right now? The greedy, dark-faced boar didn't look like someone entrusted with the responsibility of protecting the kingdom. No one knew when Iona had run out of the hall. Her short legs were as fast as ever, but slower than before because she had to carry a small pouch that peeked out her yellow ears. And that was why the little princess of the Red Ribbon Kingdom was on Grid's wanted list since birth, because Iona had fled the kingdom alone with Pyupiu. The timing of the barrier's destruction and the locust's invasion was truly suspicious. The hamster was certain that the greedy wild boar Grid was behind it all. Despite the extremely tense situation at that time, Pyupiu being here today proved that Iona had successfully helped the princess escape. As she recounted the story to Theo, the hamster still had many questions from that day. The land deed was sealed with the power of the rabbit royal family, so Grid must have thought he could take on the role of Pyupiu's guardian. Once the little one grew up, he probably planned to use her as a puppet until the princess officially ascended the throne. Look at her now, a knowledgeable and adorable rabbit, ready to discuss knowledge with other monsters, completely different from what could have happened in the past. Iona couldn't just stand by and let that happen. Later, the locusts devastated the kingdom, which was left without the king and the queen. And after the locusts disappeared, thanks to the tower managers, Grid controlled the 55th floor using the land deed he couldn't even open himself, while also acting as the landlord. Just recounting the old story made Iona clench her hands in frustration. He's truly a disgusting and revolting bastard. Theo, bewildered, followed along. I had no idea that Grid was such a bad guy, nah? But how is he still able to act as a landlord, Nia? Just as you said, he couldn't even open the land deed. Doesn't that mean he hasn't officially inherited it yet, Nia? Elka suddenly interjected. Maybe he used his influence with the Wandering Merchant Association and the Mercenary Association. Grid has a unique ability to get people on his side by using his own money. That's just a guess. There's no confirmed answer yet. Iona mentioned that recently, they've received information that Grid has put a bounty on finding Pyupiu. He must be thinking this is his chance now that the kid is at an age where she can officially succeed. Theo vaguely guessed that Puyu's appearance wasn't a coincidence, so he tried to probe if the reason Iona wants to introduce the kid to Seijin is because of that. She smiled and nodded. That's right. After we request the Black Dragon to personally protect the kid, we will rebuild the Red Ribbon Kingdom. Of course, it would be in a completely independent state and under the real princess's authority. And with her vast knowledge, Iona believes that Puyu is fully capable of ruling the kingdom. Unlike the upper floors where monsters live only during the day, the second floor where newcomers enter the tower is now nighttime. Two new hunters were still dressed in casual clothes, walking and asking each other about getting level-ups quickly and easily. One replied firmly, "I'm telling the truth. Have you been deceived your whole life or what? That's the top information my mother got from the association. But getting experience points just by giving people money doesn't make any sense." He was in the middle of arguing when both of them stopped upon seeing a figure not far away. It was a man dressed in a formal suit. As soon as he saw the two approaching, he bent down and greeted them very solemnly. "Hello, new hunters. I'm Harrison, a level coordinator." "Whoa, amazing, a level coordinator?" The two were as excited as if they had won the lottery. The guy confidently boasted to his friend, "See? You've befriended the right person." Harrison smiled brightly, inviting the two to follow him. "We've been waiting for you for a long time since we got the phone call from the madam. Please follow this way." The two immediately followed, as one of them mother had already mentioned about this. They didn't know what they saw as their eyes popped out, and the scene before them was probably surprising to anyone. A super huge field, seemingly stretching to the horizon, was being lit up by high-powered lights like daytime. They kept looking without knowing where the end was, while Harrison enthusiastically welcomed them. "Welcome to Gagel's Experience Point Farm." Looking at the strange yellow petal flowers, he was very surprised. "Are we really getting experience points by killing these? This is the first time I've seen these monsters. They look very much like flowers, but know how to extend themselves forward and move like animals. They just can't move further than their roots." Harrison drew a dagger, introducing, "These are plant-type monsters that the company has discovered. The research team has successfully bred a large number of them. We are now offering a special level consultation service exclusively for VIPs to train as skilled hunters. Each of these monsters will give you 33 experience points." Harrison swung his hand, chopping off a nearby flower, hearing it hiss like a real monster. And indeed, a sign showed that he earned an additional 33 experience points. There are around 4 monsters in every payong of land. How much do you want to invest? Looking at Harrison as a model, killing monsters seemed easy, earning points seemed easy, and there are hundreds of thousands of such monsters here. This is clearly a great deal. The two young men looked at each other and smiled, not saying anything, but clearly understanding each other. Not only did they chop with their hands as Harrison demonstrated, the plant monsters were incinerated from leaf to branch as these newcomers poured gasoline and set fire to a large bunch. While burning the monsters, they laughed joyfully, and now they could kill monsters easily upon entering the tower. The path of being a hunter seemed bright. How could it not be enjoyable? Leveling up just by burning a pile of fire, even luckier than winning the lottery. The two guys, with 2 bottles and a can of gasoline, were wreaking havoc in an area they had paid for. Who says it's not like winning the lottery, right? We can burn 100 pyeong of land with just 100 million won. The two boys laughed even harder, pouring more gasoline and fire onto the ground. Today, they weren't just going to earn more experience points, they were enjoying a rich person's brutal experience. We've gone through so many floors and still haven't reached the 38th floor, huh? Let's all head up to the 38th floor with me and see what's been happening there lately. This is the place Theo usually uses to trade agricultural products from the 99th floor. Today, a bunch of hunters have come to set up tents, and from up high, it looks just like a small village. People are chatting loudly all around, and Elka and a few others are poking their heads out. So, these must be the humans, right? Who are coming into the tower? It was Elka's first time seeing this type of creature, and he was kinda curious. While Oren was so scared, he tucked his ears back. The black cat straight up said he was really scared of them, wondering what kind of creatures they were since they looked so different. Unlike Theo, who thinks more hunters mean more customers and that they need to hurry down. From a bush, Theo the experienced middle-class merchant waves excitedly, saying hello to everyone. "I am here." "Nah!" The hunters cheered when they saw the familiar orange cat, rushing over to say, "Hey everyone, Theo's here." Seeing it made everyone even more excited than before. But little did they know, right after that, a huge monster jumped out and stood right behind Theo. Out of nowhere, the leader of the Silver Wolf tribe appeared, making the hunters jump back in fear. Some froze on the spot, others immediately reached for their weapons, all looking super surprised, like, "What is this, a wolf?" Instead of Theo's usual friendly smile, facing the hunters was the deep growl of the Silver Wolf leader. Massive in size with a fierce face, the hunters were terrified and quickly stepped back. They didn't have any weapons on them, they were just taking a break, and they had a pile of wood on their backs. The tension was thick for just a few seconds before Theo realized and gave Elka a look. "Hey Elka, these humans are our customers, nya? What are you doing with our customers, nya?" Elka, confused, immediately apologized, saying he couldn't help it because he was startled. The poor tribe leader was being scolded by the tiny cat in front of everyone, which was already weird, and then they saw Theo quickly speak up to calm things down. "Don't be surprised, nya. This is my subordinate Elka. He's a really cute doggy." Elka was still blank because he didn't understand what Theo meant. The cat turned around, frowned at the leader, and signaled to do what he was told. "Give them some service, nya? Service? What?" Elka looked at Theo for 2 seconds and got what the cat wanted, but he really didn't want to have to do any serving. So the wolf leader had a mental struggle for a few seconds, squinted his eyes looking unwilling, but then he immediately rolled onto his back, tongue out, belly up, and started whining like a dog waiting for his owner to play. The white fur under Elka looked so soft, not like a grown-up dog with a family or a son or anything. The hunters, especially the women, saw that scene and got all excited. It was like seeing a sweet, lovable dog that knows how to act cute, and the best part was it was super duper big, making everyone want to cuddle it. "Theo, can I touch him?" A young lady stepped up to ask. The cat nodded and quickly came up with a merchant-style response. "That'll be 1 tower coin for each touch, nya?" It was super expensive, but they were willing to pay to touch, cuddle, stroke, and even bury their faces in the giant dog's fur. Elka was kind of stubborn but quickly joined in with the people's compliments, saying how cute and adorable he was and how soft the fur was. The wolf's tail was wagging wildly, eyes half closed, and 2 teardrops on each side looking so helpless. Elka mumbled, "My pride, my tribe's honor, and hey, some money too." Seeing that the hunters were almost forgetting, there was another creature beside them. Theo raised his hand to get their attention. "Look over here. Here too, nya. Let me introduce you to a new face, nya. This is Oren, my wandering merchant subordinate, nya." The black cat got startled when its name was called, looking really confused, with its paws in front not knowing whether to let go or hold on, hesitating over a few words. "Hello. Hi, hello, humans." "Humans? What humans?" Theo furrowed his brows, muttering his name. "Oren, Oren." Calling it twice made the cat realize it had misread the script. It took a deep breath, raised its paw like a lucky cat, and spoke loudly. "Nice to meet you all, nya. I'm Oren, nya." He was using nya, just like Theo told it, making those ladies feel so excited. A clever, cute black cat, how adorable it was. Everyone took photos right away. Taking photos was one thing, but petting its head was another. Theo noted it down, saying, "That'll be 1 tower coin per pat, nya." Oren closed his eyes tight when strangers touched his head, tensing up completely, but later when they scratched his chin and complimented how cute he was, he couldn't help but break into a big happy grin, feeling really pleased. Then it's time for our main character today to introduce the main topic. Let's start the crop auction, Naya. We've just upgraded our bundles, so we have more crops to sell, nya. The hunters cheered and rushed over to get ready for the auction. Oren, next to Boss Theo, placed a huge basket of cherry tomatoes next to a basket of sweet potatoes. These were the first 2 items up for auction. Today, we'll be auctioning off 5,000 C-grade magic cherry tomatoes and 5,000 C-grade strength sweet sun pumpkin potatoes, along with 10,000 D-grade detoxifying green onions at 500 each per batch. Naya. Oh, strength sweet sun pumpkin potatoes. That's a new crop. Everyone cheered in excitement, but someone said, "We'll save that one for later." Now, let's kick off the auction with 500 cherry tomatoes, nya. With Theo's shout, everyone started bidding. Initially, 500 tower coins went up to 700, and the atmosphere heated up with everyone focusing on the auction. Unbeknownst to them, up above, a white rabbit and a hamster were hovering, watching. Iona was really surprised. The hamster opened her mouth and exclaimed, "When Theo works, he can shine just like his fur color." Puyu heard this and giggled, hiding behind a thick spellbook to tease the hamster. "Pew, I didn't know you could always have that kind of expression, master." Iona was startled. "Puyu, you shouldn't tease your master!" The hamster clenched her fists, her face turning bright red. Not daring to tease Iona anymore, Puyu fell silent. Suddenly, Iona felt a bit confused, thought for a moment, and then called out, "Master, am I allowed to feel emotions like that?" Puyu asked without looking at Iona, partly knowing it was a sensitive question, and partly knowing she shouldn't ask. "Since you've saved me, I've only known to train, wait, and restlessly keep running on this path for the reconstruction of the kingdom and the suffering people." Remembering the days of hard study, suddenly the book in her hands felt somehow heavier. She hesitated in her words. "Now I only have a little hope, and I know there's still much to do, so my determination might waver, but... She couldn't express her feelings, yet Iona understood. The hamster touched her student's hand gently and called, "Puyu, you don't have to carry all the burdens. Being honest with your feelings isn't something to be ashamed of. Is the black rabbit on your mind?" Her white fur cheeks turned bright red in an instant, her left ear uncontrollably wiggling twice, like nodding on behalf of her owner. Puyu felt her heart pounding, so embarrassed she had to press her lips together to pretend nothing was happening. But the sweetness couldn't be hidden. "What about him? I only saw him for a few seconds." The more confused the rabbit was, the more it showed. Now it's her turn to tease Puyu. "Oh my, you're not being honest at all. Then I don't need to talk about the black rabbit anymore." But Puyu couldn't let it go. The little rabbit muttered, "Rabbit, what kind of rabbit is Black Rabbit?" "Puyu, too late, I'm not telling you." Puyu was teased until her face turned bright red. "Master, that's too much." Iona smiled, planning to tease this little rabbit with a few more lines. It's been a while since they had some nice relaxed time, but suddenly Iona saw a familiar shadow coming out of the bush. The pretty cat Meryl, with her shiny fur, had appeared on the 38th floor since when, still daring to wave and smile at Iona? It looked like she had been here waiting for the great Archmage's attention from the start. That act really annoyed Iona. The hamster slapped her hands down quickly. "What's that cat doing here?" Iona sped off so fast to land on the grass right in front of Meryl. She greeted the hamster with a smile. Indeed, the two had met before, but the way Iona treated her before made it impossible for Meryl to show a happy smile. "You say you're Meryl, right? What are you doing here?" Iona's guarded look just made Meryl look funnier. The cat lifted her paw to cover her mouth, giggling, her beautiful blue eyes looking down adorably. "Oh, do you still remember my name? I'm truly honored." Pretending to be all charming, but Iona didn't have the patience for niceties. Just looking at that face made her so annoyed. The hamster snapped back. "Are you trying to harm Theo again?" Merle's sweet expression vanished. She slapped her paw as if she heard something really gross. "Ha! I'm no longer interested in that dumb yellow cat anymore. Since I found you." The 5 claws spread out sharply, and the light blue eyes glowed with danger even though the words were completely unclear. Iona stared straight at her, thinking, what's going on? Iona couldn't sense any intimidation from her, but her words just felt off. Suddenly, her hand quickly reached into the side pocket, pulled out something, and raised it up. Because of this, the unexpected action made Iona react swiftly, but what the cat was holding was just a white sphere emitting a soft light with some kind of engraving on top. At that moment, Iona didn't understand what was happening, and that 1 second was enough to prevent her from moving when the beam of light shot out, enveloping her body. It looked like a white lightning bolt striking Iona, not causing a jolt, but pushing the hamster a bit upwards, quickly closing into a large white shield outside. The prominent white seal appeared when the sphere was completed. Although her body had no wounds, Iona knew she was trapped. She extended her hand to summon magic, only to see it vanish like smoke right before her eyes. Her magic had never been harder to grasp like this, to be precise. No matter how many times she tried, she couldn't form anything inside this sphere. Meryl laughed crazily when she saw Iona's surprised face. "Ha ha ha! You can't use magic inside there, which means now you're just an ordinary hamster. Kai ha ha ha! You're trapped now, serves you right." Up there, Puyu hurriedly rushed down to rescue her master. She was in such a hurry, coming down from the most visible spot, that by the time she heard Iona's warning not to get close, it was already too late. The nearby bush rustled for a split second, and the deceitful goblin who had been lying in wait shot out from the bushes quickly, blocking the white rabbit before she could reach her master. In Scarum's hand was also a similar white sphere that had sealed Iona's power. He grinned mischievously and pointed it at Puyu, mimicking exactly what Marl had done. The helpless rabbit was engulfed by that white power, tumbling down like a falling stone, the book in her hand flying away, her face flushed with a long streak. Iona panicked, calling out the rabbit's name, while the two others smirked and watched. By the time Puyu struggled to get up with her aching and sore body, the two black shadows had already approached. Now, in Scarum and Marl's eyes, Puyu was no longer Iona's student, but the princess of the Red Ribbon Kingdom being wanted by greed. "Ha ha!" Both of them laughed loudly. 10,000 tower coins are ours now. Their laughter made Puyu finally realize that they weren't trying to capture Iona, but had set a trap to catch her, to take her back to where she wanted to hide the most, the landowner grid. Meryl and Scarum's laughter was so loud, echoing through a moment of the forest, they carried a hamster and a rabbit on their shoulders and left without caring if anyone was watching. They had gotten what they wanted. Just as the two were leaving, Zirath stepped out from the bushes, extremely surprised. "What just happened? Why is Lord Iona here?" While still confused about whether to chase after them, she heard a familiar voice not far away. It was Theo, happily returning with his two subordinates after finishing selling goods. "We had really good sales today, Nya. Today's income must thank the work of the White Wolf and the Black Cat. From earlier until now, Elka always showed a vulnerable face, being harassed and such, while Orin was chuckling. I'm seeing you in a new light, Orin. You definitely have a knack for being a merchant, Nya." The Black Cat smiled widely, yet remained humble. "No, Theo, I mean thank you, Nya. All thanks to your teaching, Nya." Everyone stopped when a strange fox approached. She immediately called out Theo's name, and the cat was also very surprised. "Isn't this Zerath? Haven't seen you in a long time. Did you see the party came here with, Nya? I told them to wait here, but now they're nowhere to be seen." She pondered for a moment before saying, I think I just witnessed your party being kidnapped." Back on the 99th floor, farming activities were still going on as usual. Only those not farming were a bit unusual. Eileen was clenching her fists, grumbling, Grandfather, you're a dummy. Why didn't you tell me that?" Kaiser's embarrassed face on the other side of the screen didn't make the dragon any calmer. Her cheeks puffed out, even though her grandfather kept clarifying. "I didn't tell you? This was written in Chapter 1 of the Basic Tower History. You dozed off again instead of studying, didn't you? And initially, that was the truth that all beings in the tower knew, although it seems history has been forgotten because of their short lifespans." Although it was an explanation, Aileen couldn't absorb it. The dragon switched to scolding. "You didn't even know about this. Is there any way to get out of this? At this rate, Sejin's house is going to be wiped out." "Oh, even if I mention it then." Kaiser looked down at Sejin, who was being comforted by the whole bunny family in Kuang, and suddenly ran out of words. Kuang only knew his dad was unhappy, his face scrunched up, but the little bear could only ask, "Dad, you have another home other than this place?" Black Rabbit saw that he wasn't in the mood to answer, so he chimed in, explaining that he was talking about Sejin's hometown, where Sejin's whole family, grandmother and grandfather were all there. After a moment, he spoke up again. "Lord Kaiser, what do the trials of the calamity mean?" "It's about things like the locust invasion on the 67th floor right now. They're the minions of destruction. Considering they haven't appeared on your planet, Earth, it seems they were trying to get there, but discovered a rift in dimensions and forced their way into the tower. In this situation, we can consider it a stroke of luck because somehow brought them time. This issue worries the farmer immensely. Humanity has only climbed up to the 38th floor so far, and even the powerful monsters on the 67th floor are struggling to fight the locusts. But what if the locusts appear on Earth? Thinking of millions of locust swarms flying to red quartz and covering the entire blue sky, the worst-case scenario flashed in Sejin's mind. They'd be annihilated in less than a few days. Seeing Sejin lost in his thoughts, Aileen asked her grandfather, "Is there any dimension that won against the trials? They have traveled through countless dimensions over the past thousands of years. At least there must be one." Unfortunately, Kaiser's answer was no. Not even one has been found up to now. I've searched many ways, but even we, the dragons, do not know exactly how to overcome the trials. We have only found a fragment of the Creator. The hope just flickered out, and Eileen could do nothing more than let out a helpless, "Oh." Suddenly, Sejun interrupted. "No, it's not that there's absolutely no way." He stood up with an optimistic look that greatly surprised the dragon. "Is there a way?" "What way?" Sejun leaned on his arms, looking very confident with his answer. "There's a very important difference between the destroyed worlds and this one." Kaiser's face twisted, and Eileen didn't understand either. They all popped out the same question. What difference? "It's because the Tower Farmer Park Sejun is in this world." He patted his chest, revealing the black dragon symbol on his hand. At their feet were the Bunny family and Kueng, who, though not fully understanding, also smiled confidently. "Is there any trials that's too difficult for the whole family to overcome? If the green onions we cultivated defeated the locusts on the 67th floor, then this time there might be a new variable different from the current dimension. Do you think so?" Pointing at himself, Sejun seemed to say, "I'm the one who created that differing variable." Theo's gang quickly got a new companion, Zerath. The fox grabbed the tuft of fur on Elka's head tightly while the silver wolf chief was darting around like a bird. Theo's voice almost got drowned out by the wind, but Zerath still caught it. "Didn't you know where those two were heading, Nia?" The fox said she knew. If she didn't know, then where could Elka go? They must have headed toward that rotten root inn in the Passageway village. That place is one of the businesses of Tarek, the wandering merchant, under Greed's control. The two of them made contact there yesterday. They're clearly up to some sort of scheme. But how did Zerath know all that, huh? Theo gave the fox a suspicious look. "How did you know that in such detail, Nia?" "It's also suspicious how you happened to be following after Scarum." Seeing Theo's face, Zerath suddenly realized she'd probably said too much. Her intentions weren't meant to be revealed anything. While she was suspicious and surveilling the Chow merchant troupe, who are currently at war with the locusts on the 67th floor, she discovered that they were in contact with Scarum, so she followed them. But that part was top secret, so the fox could only force a fake laugh to cover it up without saying anything. And yet, Theo got suspicious right away. "Don't tell me you are trying to work under Greed through Scarum, Nia. That guy's a damn devil, Nia. Don't hang out with those nasty bastards, Nia. Why did everything suddenly turn out like this?" Zerath was so stunned she couldn't keep her mouth shut. But Theo's story was also quite possible, so the fox just went along with it. "I also only found out now, as I thought, there's no one like Theo, my savior." With such sincerity, and even clapping his hands to convince Theo immediately. The cat snorted in agreement. She knew it was good, making Zerath breathe a sigh of relief. Suddenly, both of them glanced sideways when they noticed the silver wolf chief had stopped, catching his breath while signaling to Theo that they'd reached the passage entrance. In front of them was a patch of deep green forest, dotted with a few pale white boulders. It was the merchant path on the 38th floor. They were standing on a high ledge and had to get down to reach the passage. Theo told Zerath that he needed to find the companion waiting here. That guy had mentioned he held a high position in the mercenary group here, so meeting him again would be useful. Zerath wanted to know who that guy was, but Theo didn't rush to speak. After all, Elka was already getting down, and they'd meet very soon. Lying asleep on a large rock outside the entrance was the Black Wolf Chief, Hegel, looking completely relaxed, not paying any attention to the stares of the merchants entering the passage. They kept staring at him, wondering why a wolf was sleeping there. Theo jumped down, raised his hand to greet Hegel, and woke the wolf. "Oi, Hegel, we're here, Nia." The chief immediately stood up to greet Theo. "You're here. Did you sell a lot of crops?" Only then did Hegel notice that next to Theo was a familiar figure in a cloak. Oh, as if she were a stranger. The mercenary instantly recognized her, and Zerath never expected that Theo was actually talking about Hegel, huh? The two had met before during the association meeting. Zerath broke out in a cold sweat, silently praying that Hegel would play along with her. Who would have thought he'd speak? Wandering Merchant Association leaders, so Zerath almost wanted to throw her head off to stop him. When Hegel finally caught on to the signal, he quickly changed his tune. Yeah, that's right, this is Zerath, a very close friend of the Wandering Merchant Association leader's son. Ha ha ha! Hegel's sycophantic expression looked downright ridiculous in front of the others, but Zerath grabbed onto it and acted all respectful. Hello, Hegel. Both sides exchanged forced smiles for a while until the fox found a chance to whisper, "I'm on an undercover mission." I see." Hegel was about to ask more than Theo spoke up. "What is it, Nya? Do you know each other, Nya?" Their awkward, embarrassed smiles were identical, both laughing as if to say, "Yeah, we know each other on a basic level, nothing serious at all." Hegel noticed that something was off with the group, scanning everyone and guessing something wasn't right. "Where are Lord Iona and Piuyu?" Almost forgot. Theo quickly told Hegel that Iona and Piuyu had been kidnapped. The shocking news was so overwhelming that the Black Wolf chief could hardly believe it. He thought the cat was joking and even said, "Don't joke like that. Who in their right mind could kidnap Lord Iona?" Zerath nodded. "It's true, Hegel. Theo wasn't joking. I witnessed it myself." Theo added immediately, "It was Scarum and Maril, Nya." Zerath said they were on their way to the Rotten Root Inn to meet someone named Tarek, Nya. "Can we get support from strong individuals at the Free Mercenary Association, Nya?" At the mention of Tarek, Hegel looked puzzled. Wasn't that guy the wandering merchant under greed? This is going to be tough indeed. Elka agreed too. "Theo, even within the Free Mercenary Association, there are many different factions. Most of them are in the economic faction, working solely for money. Follow those with money. Greed is currently one of the wealthiest in the tower. Just like I was in the past, most of the mercenaries in the association are likely to have connection with greed." "So what about the magical association then?" the cat asked. "Well, that isn't any better either," Hegel replied. "Greed has already planned to have his subordinates in more places than I expected. Even the magical association is probably the same. This way doesn't work, and that way won't do either." Theo groaned, holding his head. "Nya! Does that mean there's really no other way, Nya?" Zerath squinted at the orange cat. As an experienced agent, of course the fox had already thought of many solutions. It was just a matter of whether to tell the cat or not. Finally, she decided to speak up. "Theo, I've got an idea, but can you trust me this one time?" Looking completely serious, and given the dire situation, Theo had no other choice. The warm sun shone down on houses of the passageway village, so peaceful, completely different from the gloomy scene in the slum area, where the dilapidated houses barely saw the sun. The residents there were all poor, drunk, elderly, or jobless. Yet amidst those shabby houses was the Rotten Root Inn that Scarum and Maril were headed for. Each carrying a heavy load, they reached the wooden door of the inn, and Scarum knocked exactly 4 times in a broken rhythm. The wooden panel was slid aside, revealing a pair of mischievous, beady eyes staring intently at Scarum, asking with just one word, "Business." The goblin replied immediately, "We got the item and came to see Tarek." Noticing that next to Scarum there was also a white cat carrying a similar load but staying silent, the goblin added another question. "A bug?" That was clearly a code between the two, because Scarum sounded worried when replying in a way that was totally different from what was asked. "It likes rotten root." The wooden panel was slid back to its original place, hiding the imp's gaze, and then the door was pulled inward, leaving Scarum unable to hide his nervous excitement and anxiety. "Let's go," Scarum said to Maril, and the two stepped inside, but everyone looked worried because there were many shady characters around. Except for the one who opened the door earlier, a large green imp. Everyone else was mercenaries and big guys sitting and drinking beer. They drank their beer, but couldn't take their eyes off the new guests entering the inn. Even when Maril was climbing the stairs, they kept watching her intently. No pretense or suggestiveness at all. Every step she took was noticed by them. The two of them reached the second floor, where a man in an expensive red cloak was already waiting. He said coolly, "Scarum, is it? You better not bring disappointing results for me this time." Sitting on a sofa was an overweight pig holding a cigar, asking Scarum. His smile looked gentle, but it carried a threatening undertone. Scarum didn't dare delay any longer, casually letting the cloak on his shoulder drop as he replied, "Certainly not, Tarek. Here, as per your instruction." 2 pieces of cloth were pulled out, revealing Piuyu and Iona trapped inside 2 magical containment spheres. The smiles on Scarum and Maril said it all. They'd just received a heap of cash this time. Seeing the 2 trapped inside the spheres, Tarek immediately leapt up from his chair, murmuring continuously, "Oh," as he moved closer to take a look. "As per your command, we used the seal to capture these 2, said Scarum. Tarek truly had to commend Scarum for his hard work. Then he smiled kindly down at the white rabbit. "How have you been lately, Princess Piuyu? You've grown into such a beautiful rabbit." Puyu had no idea who this guy was. Why would he even know her name? But Tarek didn't wait for any response from Puyu. He quickly turned to the hamster on his left, keeping up a fake smile against Iona's obvious disdain. And here is the leader of the magical association, Iona. The hamster one heard Tarek speak, and her cheeks burned with anger. Tarek, you disgusting pie! Iona gritted her teeth, and before she could finish her sentence, a tremendous force from outside struck the sphere, making it sink down with her inside. Iona was stomped on repeatedly by that pig, venting his rage with curses. I've taken it easy on you all this time, yet can't you read the room now? Still don't get it? You're nothing but a harmless hamster who can't even use magic anymore. Luckily, the sphere didn't shatter, so Iona could withstand Tarek's relentless stomping, but that was why the pig kept stomping to vent his anger. It wasn't until the overweight body could no longer take it that he finally stopped, grabbing the cloth that the servant had brought over. At least that eased things up a bit. Skaram and Maril both stepped back a little as Tarek stomped on the rat, only following along because they were all too scared of that sight. Tarek looked at the imp. When you first came and said you saw the princess of the Red Ribbon Kingdom, I thought you were Lung. And to think you'd complete the mission so perfectly. Lord Greed will be pleased. Skaram immediately flashed a flattering smile. In that case, could you officially introduce me to Greed? The fat pig interrupted in an overly affected tone. I'll think about that. Give them 10,000 tower coins. A fake smile spread across Tarek's face as he ordered his underlings to quickly prepare the money and then sent the two of them on their way. The mercenary dog shoved them out immediately, while Skaram still wanted to say more. All he wanted was just one chance to actually meet Greed. Maril didn't care. The glittering gold coins in her hand were enough to keep her happy all day. After a brief commotion, only the Tarek group remained. The pig glanced down at his own badly scratched Iona as if nothing had happened. Where were we just now? Oh, Iona, thinking about the deals you ruined, I really want to crush you, but now not the time for that. Princess Puyu, I am Tarek of the Chow Wandering Merchants Troupe. Your patron, Lord Greed, has been searching for the princess for decades. Now, you should stop wandering around and return to the Red Ribbon Kingdom. No. Puyu, who didn't even know who this fat pig was, just by the way he treated her master, and then acted all sweet with her, knew he was nothing. There was no need to be cautious or fearful. After all, they needed her to come back anyway. So the rabbit stubbornly retorted, Puyu, Greed isn't my patron. I don't want to have my parents' mortal enemy as my patron. Puyu's words didn't anger Tarek. He turned around and mocked Iona. Seeing Princess Puyu think like that, it must be because that magician must have brainwashed you deeply, huh? That incident back then was just a stroke of bad luck, wasn't it? Lord Greed is a virtuous individual, highs managing the kingdom and its people to fulfill his responsibilities. He fully supports and works hard to prevent the tragedy on the 55th floor from happening again on the 67th floor. While he was casually recounting this to Puyu, Iona behind him let out a loud, clear laugh. Ha! You all really thought no one would know that bastard were using his support to take control of the 67th floor? But things won't go as you planned. The number of locusts is increasing. Hearing that, Tarek burst into raucous laughter, as if he had heard something extremely funny. He even mocked Iona, calling her a real idiot. Did you think we're sighting and waiting to fall into ruin without doing anything? While Tarek was laughing their heads off, the door was suddenly opened from the outside. A mercenary dog had come to report. They said the locust's color had switched back to red. Tarek put on a sly smile at the dog, using his counterfeit face on everyone without sparing a single soul. Iona listened in shock. What the heck? No way. They were clearly all turned into green locusts. Ha ha, no need to hide anything anymore. Tarek's smile darkened a few notches as he stood up, crossing his legs and announcing, those locusts will just keep increasing in number, because we're feeding them. Tarek revealed his dangerous, scheming nature as a fat pig, but as soon as he finished that sentence with Iona, his smile returned. The red locusts we fed will quickly evolve into purple ones. Everywhere will turn into wasteland, and once the food runs out, this place will fall under Lord Greed's rule as well. Puyu, you should marry Greed and hand over control of the Red Ribbon Kingdom to him. Even if you're just an innocent and fragile rabbit who doesn't know much about the world, you naturally want to save your people, right? Puyu stubbornly refused to reply, and Tarek once again turned to look at the Grand Mage. First of all, Iona, it looks like I have no choice but to get rid of you. And with this, I'll make the Magician Association ours as well. You see, you're extremely dangerous to Lord Greed's plans. The pig's eyes gleamed venomously, and around him, 2 pairs of mercenary eyes were fixed on Iona. Normally, when she still had her magic, none of them would dare come close. But now Iona was just a powerless little hamster, so even the mercenary dogs dared to stand high above, smirking cunningly at her. KKK, thanks for the food. One of them scooped up the sphere containing Iona in his hand and brought it close to his large, gaping mouth full of sharp teeth. Just as he was about to sink his teeth in, the wall beside him suddenly exploded with a huge bang. Before the dog could react, a leg came rushing from that direction, stomping directly on his face and knocking him sideways. That was Theo, who just kicked the mercenary dog right in front of Tarek. The cat stormed over, yelling, "Don't you dare mess with my precious magician, Nia." Iona looked up at Theo with delight from above, never having felt such a strong urge to see that orange cat as much as she did now, her eyes showing unhidden emotion. Theo just lay on his back, spreading his arms and legs to catch the sphere containing Iona. The furious glare he had aimed at the fleeing dog now shifted toward Iona. "Did you wait long, Nia?" She softly smiled. "I knew you'd come in no time." Iona's tiny hand could only reach the inner wall of the sphere, the only barrier between her and Theo's hand. That moment when they met seemed as long as an entire movie, even though it was just a few seconds. Looking back, the dog had been sent crashing into the wall on the other side with a mighty thud, leaving Tarek and the remaining mercenaries gaping in astonishment as they watched Theo gently land with Iona in his arms. They all looked around in bewilderment, swearing they had no idea what kind of crazy stuff had just happened. An orange cat kicking a dog that was lying in a corner? And that wall Theo just smashed into, how could it have been blown a giant hole like that? The cat looked perfectly fine. How could this be? Tarek had been shouting non-stop, but Theo didn't pay him any mind. The cat was busy helping free Iona and Puyu, continuously asking the two how to open the sphere. "Oi oi, do you know who I am? I'm Tarek, the leader of Chow Wandering Merchant Troop under Greed. How dare you touch what belongs to me, the future great wandering merchant? I'll make sure you can't even step foot in the wandering merchant industry. Hey, are you listening to me, you lowly yellow cat?" Tarek's voice rang out, and soon Theo had to turn back and glare at the fat pig. "Shut your mouth, Nia. I'm holding back my urge to kill you, Nia." Knowing that this guy wouldn't let it go, Theo stood up and glared at the pig. "You want to know who I am, Nia? Then let me tell you. Remember this well, you pig." Theo pointed directly at Tarek while he was saying, "I'm the wandering middle-class merchant. I, Theo, the orange cat." With his short thumb, Theo pointed right at himself with confidence. A gust of wind blew, making his cloak flutter and adding a perfect dose of dashing charisma. In the room, Theo's words rang out loud and clear. "I am a middle-class wandering merchant who will become a great merchant. And also me, Theo, the golden cat, Nia." Tarek was quite shocked by Theo's grand entrance, his warthog-like eyes staring straight at the cat. For 3 whole seconds, he stayed frozen like that, then suddenly pressed his lips together. Then, he burst out laughing, ha 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 ha, tilting his head back as if the ceiling itself was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. He laughed so hard that his bulging belly looked like it might just roll down to his feet. Only when he was done did he shake his head vigorously, no longer sparing Theo a single glance. His voice turned into a weary sigh, the kind one would use when talking to a clueless child. "Whether you call yourself a golden or yellow cat, you're still just a yellow cat." After his mockery, Tarek stepped back and gave a command to the mercenary dog beside him. "Teach this brat a lesson." The brown dog stepped forward, looking at Theo with not a hint of concern. The dog let out a low, sinister chuckle, ki, then suddenly stuck out his tongue hungrily, revealing a set of razor-sharp fangs. His arms reached out, ready to snatch his prey. "I shall tear you apart to pieces very painfully. Ha 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 ha!" Tremble in fear. It did look intimidating, but Theo merely narrowed his eyes in boredom. Standing still, he smirked and muttered, "I am not scared, Nia." The dog froze, thinking he must have misheard. But Theo's eyes widened as he repeated himself, "My subordinates are far more terrifying than that, Nia." The brown dog hadn't even figured out where Theo's subordinates were when, out of nowhere, 2 shaggy wolves leaped down. Elka soared just behind Hegel, his face calm and collected, a stark contrast to the fierce, battle-hardened demeanor of the Black Wolf, an elite mercenary with years of experience. Only when Hagel's jaws were inches away from his head did the brown dog realize the threat. In the blink of an eye, Hagel lunged, his fangs sinking deep into the dog's neck, slamming him to the ground despite his pained yelps. Meanwhile, Elka had already moved to guard Theo, both of them watching the scene unfold like it was straight out of a Hollywood movie. Hagel bit down precisely, then swiftly released, leaving a long, deep gash across the dog's neck. The poor creature lay motionless, looking completely out of commission. Tarek's smile vanished instantly. What? What's going on? How is there a black wolf here? And you? Aren't you Elka of the Silver Wolf tribe? You've been receiving Lord Greed's kindness all this time, but what are you doing here? Tarek was clearly shaken upon recognizing Elka's identity, but at the mere mention of Greed's name, his rage reignited. Attacking me means betraying Lord Greed. Do you not care about the consequences this will bring upon your tribe? People often mistook Elka's quiet nature for meekness, but faced with Tarek's aggression, he responded with eerie composure. Shut your mouth. Elka, the one who once ate the nasty scraps that disgusting wild boar handed down, was long dead. Right now, I am Elka of the Silver Wolf tribe, who protects the golden cat Theo, the one who will become a great wandering merchant. The remaining black wolf stepped into Tarek's view. With the massive scar across his face, he looked like he was glaring daggers at Tarek, but in truth, he was merely introducing himself in the simplest way possible. I am Hagel of the Black Wolf tribe. Theo didn't bother wasting words. He simply crossed his arms and stared straight at the boar, sending a signal to his subordinates in an instant. Hagel's tone shifted. If you touch even the tip of Theo's fur, we won't let it slide. Tarek hesitated. He was nothing more than a fat boar physically, after all. How could he stand a chance against a wolf chief if he made the wrong move? Anger and confusion swirled in his mind. Why would wolf tribes serve a mere cat? You think you can oppose me without consequences? I could make sure you never leave this place alive. It was unclear where Tarek got the guts to point his fat finger at Theo's group and shout them all down in one go. Insulting wolves was one thing, but insulting Lord Theo? That, Elka could not ignore. His eyes narrowed at Tarek, his voice turning low and deadly. I shall tear apart that oily mouth of yours so that you can stop spouting nonsense. Tarek understood immediately. It was clear now that these people didn't fear his threats. If anything, he was the one in danger here. A cold breeze drifted through a gaping hole in the wall, blowing against Tarek and snapping him back to reality. His guards were gone. He had no combat abilities. At least, his mouth still worked. With that in mind, he changed his tone, still arrogant, but at least less insufferable. I should thank you for blowing off the roof. You see, this slum is my territory. Marksman. The wild boar lifted his pudgy arm and pointed outside, more specifically, through the hole in the wall that the wolves had torn through. But there was no response. Only the wind whispered in reply. Not even the chirp of a bird could be heard. What? Why is no one answering? 10 pairs of eyes stared at Tarek, waiting to see what kind of circus act he would put on next. The boar stood there, completely baffled. What is going on? Why is there no one left? A figure in blue suddenly emerged behind the two wolves. It's no use. This area is also our territory. Your subordinates were located. It was Zareth, the fox, clad in police uniform, stepping forward to inform Tarek. All of your subordinates have been captured by our association's inspection bureau agents before they could even act. Zirath was referring to the greedy goblins who had abandoned everything for money. At that moment, they were tightly bound by the dogs from Association's inspection bureau, their heads pressed under gun barrels, too terrified to move an inch. Just as Tarek had suspected from the beginning, his forces had been hiding all around the Rotten Root Inn, waiting for a single signal from their boss to strike. Tarek recognized the fox. You're an agent of the Wandering Merchant Association's Secret Inspection Bureau. Sir Tarek, nice to meet you. I am Zirath, an agent of the Inspection Bureau. You are hereby placed under arrest for kidnapping, unlawful confinement, intimidation, and more than 8 other criminal charges. Her steely gaze made the fat boar now almost stammering. What? How? Where's your proof? I'm a kind wandering merchant. Those guys are the ones who barged into my business and caused such a ruckus. How do you plan to capture me? It was unclear who Tarek was even referring to, the orange cat or the 2 wolves by his side. No one here was as frantic as the warthog, shouting and flailing about. Proof? A familiar voice chimed in. It was Iona, speaking calmly as she was freed from the enchanted sphere. In the little hamster's hands was a ring adorned with a peculiar red gem, looking like an old relic. She declared that this was the evidence, and the moment she did, a gruff voice echoed from within it. There's no need to hide anymore. The truth will now be revealed. The locusts will start multiplying again, because we're feeding them. Hearing just that much, Tarek's greasy face broke out into a cold sweat. That voice, it was his own, but it didn't stop there. His voice continued to ring out, loud and clear. Everything will turn into a wasteland, and once the food runs out, this place will fall under Lord Greed's rule as well. Puyu, you should marry Greed and hand over the ruling of the Red Ribbon Kingdom, as a thoroughly fragile and innocent rabbit, of course. Ha 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 ha! Listening to his own voice play back, Tarek was as horrified as if he were hearing a ghost whisper in his ear. He stammered in denial. That's a lie. But Iona immediately cut him off. Magic doesn't lies. But you're not supposed to be able to use magic, right? I heard that once someone is inside that sphere, they can't use magic anymore. It seemed Tarek wouldn't back down as long as he had doubts. Iona sighed and explained, that's true, I can't use magic in the usual way, but this artifact is enchanted with memory preservation magic. Instead of transmitting information outward, it stores everything internally, which makes it unaffected by the sealing spell. That is the interesting point of magic. Her small finger, barely the size of a pea, pointed at Tarek like a 1,000-pound hammer slamming into his face. Just surrender quietly. You will be referred to the association's court of law, together with Greed, whom you like so much. The wild boar was utterly speechless, his teeth grinding in frustration. The case was settled. Before long, more agents arrived, swiftly restraining and hauling away Tarek's guards. They didn't forget to bind Tarek's hands behind his back either. The moment he was touched, Tarek roared in protest. No, this can't be happening. We invested so much money into this. Lord Greed won't let this slide. He won't sit by and watch. He kept shouting, but the agents kept dragging him further away until his voice faded into the distance. With only their own people left, Theo turned to Zerath. The cat had intended to chat casually with her, but before he could speak, the fox agent lowered her head in respect. Theo, thank you. Thanks to the time you bought us, we were able to locate all the marksmen. Oh, it was nothing, Nya. Then, with a curious tilt of his head, he added, but I must say, I'm really surprised to learn that you're a secret agent of the Inspection Bureau, Zerath. The fox laughed awkwardly and murmured an apology. I'm sorry, I had no plan of deceiving you. Yet she had clearly kept it from Theo from the very beginning, deliberately approaching him in secret. But Theo, once he saw someone as a friend, never dwelled on such things. Instead, he clapped Zerath on the shoulder, his eyes narrowing in a playful smile. Let's get along well, Nya. Zerath was momentarily speechless, still dazed when the cat turned and waved goodbye. Swing by the 99th floor sometime. I'll introduce you to Chairman Park, Nya. Once everything settles down, you must come visit Nya. Watching Theo head toward Iona and Puyu, seemingly ready to leave, Zerath didn't stop them. But one thought lingered in her mind. Did he just say, Chairman Park? I wonder what kind of person that is. Theo barely took a step toward Iona before his brow furrowed. Her whole body and face were scratched up, a result of the wild boar's cruel stomping earlier. So when she was asked if she was okay, Iona just beamed and said she was fine, that she only needed a little rest, and she'd recover right away. She never once mentioned where the wound on her face came from. Theo didn't ask either. Otherwise, he would have held a serious grudge against Tarek. He only remembered that back when they were at the Oren's mansion, Iona had suddenly asked to borrow that ring for no reason. He had kept it in his bundle for so long that he had completely forgotten he even had it. Turns out, Iona had foreseen this and borrowed it from Theo, likely knowing she'd need it in the future. And sure enough, it came in handy. Hegel suddenly spoke up, surprised. Unbelievable. There's a kind of magic even Lord Iona can't handle. What happened today was completely unexpected. No one saw it coming, not even Iona. But one thing she was certain of, the thing that created this magic-blocking sphere wasn't just some ordinary item that a monster in the tower could use. Oren whispered, I can feel a dragon's presence from this thing. Iona hadn't noticed it before, but hearing Oren say that, she pressed the sphere against her face and thought, a dragon? Could it be the black dragon? No, that's not it. This feels completely different from the black dragon. First things first, I'll take this up to the 99th floor. Now that we've certainly figured out that Greed is targeting Puyu, we need absolute protection from the black dragon. Just hearing that was enough to tell that things were getting serious. A Grand Archmage, the head of the Magic Tower, was facing something beyond her power and needed the Black Dragon's protection. Elka, the chief of the Silver Wolf clan, realized more than ever that restoring the Red Ribbon Kingdom was becoming a necessity. Hegel agreed. This is the time for us Wolf Tribe to join forces and help. Just then, an agent approached. Lord Iona, we've captured 2 suspicious individuals downstairs. With that, the agent dragged in 2 squirming figures, wriggling like drowning worms in salt water. Knowing full well they had no chance of escaping, the duo still struggled fiercely, insisting they had nothing to do with Tarek. I told you I'm not. Don't know Tarek at all, one of them blurted. Yeah, we were just loitering around, the other added. They kept yapping away until they noticed who was standing in the room. Theo. The orange cat stared at them in silence. No words, no expression, yet it was enough to make both Meryl and Scarum break into a cold sweat. One was a scammer who had tricked him. The other was a woman who had dumped him, then, when she couldn't get him back, turned around and schemed against his lover. Looking at the two of them, Theo suddenly found it hilarious. You two, come with me to the 99th floor. Naya! The 99th floor was as busy as ever. The golden flowers of the cherry tomato fields were in full bloom, and bees buzzed around, busily gathering nectar. The rabbit folk, when not pruning, were diligently watering the plants. Almost everyone was working hard. If not working, then at least chewing hard. Like Aileen, for example, the dragon who was happily nibbling on a tiny sweet honey jelly. Oh wow, this is delicious. Honey jelly made from peanut flowers has a slightly nutty and savory flavor, unlike cherry tomato honey jelly. Aileen was praising it for Sejan, who was currently checking on the peanut plants that were in full bloom, filling the air with a pleasant fragrance. Glad you like it. It's about time to harvest the peanuts too. We can boil it, can eat it, you can do all sorts of things with it. It looked like Sejan was already thinking about all the ways he could use the peanuts. But hey, Sejan, aren't you worried at all? Your cat friend is in danger. Is it really all right for you to be eating leisurely like this? Sejan smiled. I just focus on what I can do right now. Worrying won't solve anything, right? And besides, I have a plan too. Seeing the serious look on Sejan's face, Aileen grew curious and urged him to spill the details. If I can help, I'll do everything I can. Thanks, but for now, we have to wait for Theo to return. No rushing things. Want some more honey jelly? Of course, that question earned an enthusiastic nod from Aileen. But before that, a notification popped up in front of Sejan. Tenant Farmers has created a 100 pyong cherry tomato field. You have gained 200 experience points. The size of the farm has now surpassed 30,000 pyong. You have developed from a landowner into a wealthy landowner. Whoa. Sejan read through each notification one by one. Who would have thought he had now become the owner of a 30,000 pyong farm? The field has gotten really vast. My talent has developed. What's a wealthy landowner? Curious, Sejan tapped on it, revealing a long list of details. Talent wealthy landowner, an acquired talent that only a farmer with over 30,000 pyong of farmland can possess. You can designate up to 100 tenant farmer. Tenant farmer can use the landowner's job skills. When tenant farmer use the landowner's skills, the landowner receives a 3% reward. You can designate up to 5 guards to protect your farm. Within a 1-kilometer radius around the wealthy landowner, the landowner will receive 50% of the experience points from enemies defeated by their guards as a reward. Reading that line made Sejan freeze in shock. Wait, I can actually select guards to protect my farm? And on top of that, I get 50% of the experience when they defeat enemies? This isn't even stealing experience points, so it's probably faster to let the guards handle it instead of doing it myself. Kung, Black Rabbit, get over here, quick! Sejan waved at his 2 best candidates for the job. Those 2 were practically glued together wherever they went. All right, first, I'll select Kwang and Black Rabbit as guards. The 2 little ones stared at the glowing blue signs above their heads, but of course, they couldn't read a word of it. The little bear cub turned to his dad and asked, "What's this? Did you forget to tell me something?" "Kwang, you are now officially a guard protecting this farm." His eyes sparkled as he cheered. "That sounds amazing. I'll be